Texas Chainsaw 3D. Now, I'm just going to cut straight to the point on this one. It sucks, it's terrible, it's a complete waste of time. Basically, it's a direct sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in 1974 and completely ignores all the various sequels, prequels, and reboots that have come out before. So the way this movie opens up is it literally takes place minutes right after the first movie ended. Now, fans of the original movie actually might find this scene to be kind of cool, because what happens is that after the lady in the original movie gets away and survives, the whole town learns what Leatherface and what the entire Sawyer family has been up to in their small little town. So they get together, form a mob, go down to the Sawyer house, and burn it down with the entire Sawyer family in it. Kind of reminds me of A Nightmare on Elm Street at that point, but I was able to step back from that. So after the house burns down, one of the mob people finds an infant baby, and obviously it's one of the Sawyer babies, and he takes it and raises it as one of his own. Then the movie cuts 25 to 30 years later, and for me this is just where the movie just goes completely downhill. For one, what's the point of calling it a direct sequel to the original if you're just going to go ahead and cut 25 to 30 years into the future, when you had a good thing going where you were starting right where the original ended and just go from there? So cutting ahead in time was just a bad idea. And number two, the story from here on out stinks. Even for like cheesy horror standards, it's just god awful. And it makes no sense, and there's just so many plot holes. And I'm not just talking about small little things, these are some pretty big plot holes that will just make you just want to scream at this movie. It's just that god awful. What happens is that the baby, who's now an adult, gets a letter from a lawyer saying that her grandmother has just died and she's inheriting the house. Now, it's not the grandmother of the adoptive parents, it's the grandmother from the Sawyer family. So you kind of have to swallow that little fact, and like how she wasn't in the house and how she was never hunted down, and how anyone knew that she was even a Sawyer to begin with when everyone assumed that the baby died in the house. So if you're able to swallow that, I guess you can continue with this movie. But so after she learns that she gets a new house, she grabs her friends, they all get together along with her boyfriend, they hop in a van and they drive to this new house. Apparently you don't need to go through any legal procedures and, you know, and sign documents and papers and meet with various people. Apparently when someone dies, you can just get together with your friends, hop in a van, and go collect your inheritance. That was just brilliant. So the friends get together, they go to the house, and then from here on out there is no story, because all that happens is that you find out Leatherface is living in the basement and he comes out and just starts killing people. Now that in itself is a very big plot hole, because one, Leatherface was in the Sawyer house when it burned down, and they never explain or show how he survived it, how he got out of there, how no one saw him get out, and how he hooked up with his grandmother and was able to live there for 25 to 30 some odd years. No, he just pops up, hello, I'm Leatherface, and just starts killing people. So that was difficult to watch, to say the least. But to be all fair, when someone goes to see a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, you're really not expecting a great story. So let's just talk about Leatherface and the kills that he has. Now, for this movie, it was pretty decent. There's some cool scenes, and then there's some really bad scenes. The highlight off the top of my head, I guess I can say, is that there's a scene where Leatherface, you know, there's a guy lying on the ground, and Leatherface takes a knife and just starts, you know, taking a knife and skinning his face off. But the thing is, the guy is still alive on the ground. So as he's skinning his face off, you just see this guy just like violently shake on the ground. It's a very disturbing scene, and it's very in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tradition, so that was enjoyable. But at the same time, there's some really goofy kills. The one that pops out at me is If you know Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know Leatherface likes to put his victims on hooks and then he likes to torture them. So there's a scene where there's a guy on a hook, and Leatherface, you know, starts his chainsaw and he proceeds to cut through his midsection right here. Now, the funny thing about this scene is that the camera does a close-up of the guy's face, you know, from the shoulders on up, and you just see him hanging there and he's shaking, screaming violently, you know. And then it cuts to a close-up of his midsection as the saw is going through, and the body's completely still. And then it cuts back up and you see him shaking, screaming, ah! And then it cuts back down as, you know, he's cutting through the body, and it's still completely still. So there's a lot of goofy editing that made it look so cheesy that you just couldn't help but laugh at this scene, when in actuality, if it was pulled off right, it could have been a very disgusting, awesome scene. So there's hits and misses when it comes to the kills. Now, with the characters involved, obviously you're not expecting much with this type of movie. They're just plain out sluts and so stupid that you don't care about them. And for horror standards, I would say they are about a C- when it comes to this level, because the actors, I got the impression that they actually thought they were doing a good job. They took it so seriously, and you just get that impression that they thought they were so badass when they came, but in reality they just came out as the biggest douchebags ever. So I just laughed at all the characters, and the kills, some I laughed at, some were good, but and then the epic ending. Oh my god. I almost had a Scanners moment at this point. I thought my head was just gonna explode. I thought I was in a cartoon. It's just so over the top and so ridiculous that you just gotta see it. I don't suggest paying the 14 bucks to see this in 3D. Just wait till Netflix or some shit like that and just stream it and just watch the ending, because it's just ridiculous. And the funny thing is, it leaves it open for a sequel, and that just had me laughing hysterically in the theater, because there is no way this is going to go on to make a sequel, especially since in the Texas Chainsaw history, they've rebooted the series 3 times already, and I've seen better Texas Chainsaw movies where they rebooted it, and I actually liked where they left off before, and this is god-awful. So, one of 2 possibilities is going to happen. One, they are going to reboot the series probably in 3-4 years or whatever, or 2, the series is just going to die. That's it. It's that bad. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the movie. Overall, you know, it's just bad. Plain and simple, that's it.